We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to talk some ball.
Hey, Coach, I know before we get to the Ravens, I know there's a lot of excitement in D.C., and I think everybody up here feels the exact same way. Like, that kid's unbelievable. I mean, he is a really, really good football player, Jayden Daniels. I think the difference on Sunday seemed to be that, like, the Ravens as a franchise, some of the other pieces they have, they're a little bit better. Lamar's still probably a couple steps ahead. But I don't think there's any disputing what Jayden Daniels is capable of being already in the NFL and what he might be in the years to come.
I have no question about it. I think I said after 5 games, he's in the conversation not only for rookie year, but for MVP for what he's done with that franchise and turning that around in such a short amount of time. Nobody would have thought they'd be 4-1 going into Baltimore. That's for sure. So he's got the team on his back. They're doing a lot of good things right, too. The running game's been solid, not against Baltimore. Baltimore shut it down pretty good. But for the most part, it's been a total team effort led by a rookie quarterback, and he's using a lot of different weapons and playing extremely well.
That said, Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson, and this Ravens offense, this combination of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, can you even imagine having to scheme up ways to figure out a way to stop this at this point?
I like watching defenses try to stop them. And obviously Dan Quinn's idea was let's play a lot of single high safety and try to load the box and stop the run. And that's understandable. So Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson's impact not only in the running game but in the passing game is huge. And they're getting great looks. They're getting single high, outside leverage, and obviously they're calling good plays to run away from that, and Lamar's putting it on them when he has to. So yeah, they're averaging almost 200 yards a game rushing, and Lamar's putting the ball on the money. So yeah, they're a tough team to stop for sure.
So what do you do, right? Like if you're opposing, what in the world do you do other than just like sort of pray that you can outscore them?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the one thing, I think Dan Quinn, I think his idea was, hell, we'll play single safety and let Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman and the receivers try to beat our corners. And they ended up doing that. They had 9 for 132, so that didn't work out too well. Bateman had 4 for 71. So it's tough. It's like pick your poison. You want to die a slow death and let Derrick Henry have 7-8 yards of pop and Lamar keep his zone read for another 20 yards, 30 yards here and there? Or do you want to, put it on Lamar's shoulders to throw the ball? But right now, their balance is extraordinary. Their offensive line's coming together, and just a fun thing to watch.
He is Jay Gruden. He's with us here on GCR. Jay, short of, and look, injury is the great equalizer in the NFL, right? And we all acknowledge that. Like, everything could change within 2 weeks. But if the principles, if Lamar, if Derrick Henry, if, at least a few of the pass catchers stay healthy, do you feel like this is a Ravens offense that is growing to the point where they can finally overcome the Kansas City Chiefs, keep Patrick Mahomes off the field, dictate pace, make them play the way that they're supposed to, and they were supposed to in the AFC Championship game last year?
I think there's no question about it. The way they're playing right now and the way they look, and having Derrick Henry to close out games is different. I mean, he's the ultimate closer. He's Mariano Rivera coming off the bench for the Yankees. I mean, if they have a lead into the fourth quarter, it's a wrap. And, so I don't think there's any doubt that they'll have the ability, staying healthy, to compete with anybody on their schedule.
Is there, I think in Baltimore there are concerns about the defense. This is not what we're used to in Baltimore, as you'd imagine. Like, this is, an organization that's been built on the history of their defense. Is this, hey, you've played a lot of really good quarterbacks so far, or would you be concerned legitimately about a pass defense that is at best middle of the road and probably really worse than that?
Yeah, I'd be concerned a little bit. I think that's the weakness of the football team right now is defensively. I think the front's playing pretty good. They're still stop and run. They're holding teams under 60 yards a game rushing. But it's the pass defense and the pass rush. They just got to get it going. They got to get a better pass rush so they don't, leave these corners out there too much. And they just got to play better. But when you talk about Ravens, the last thing you ever thought you'd talk about is their defense because they've been so good for so long. But right now, you're right. It is a little bit of a little bit of hole in their team right now.
Is it something that's worth, Jay? I know this is always difficult. I want to present an argument to you because it was the conversation was being had about the Ravens maybe being involved in Davante Adams trade talks, and I heard a lot of, well, you don't want to rock the boat, right? Things are working. I wonder, as someone who's been in this position before, what you make of that argument that for a head coach, for an organization, that adding good football players could be like rocking the boat when something's working.
It could be depending on, what you're going to use them for. Is that really the piece that you need? I'd rather go out and get a corner, top-notch
Right.
corner or something
Right.
like that, or a pass rusher. Maybe go check on Hassan Reddick or somebody like that just to add to the defense. But, you're right. You can never go wrong adding good players, but there is something to maybe rocking about because this is a run-first football team, and all the receivers got to block. Dave's probably not a great blocker, but Rashad Bateman's a good blocker, and Aguilar will stick his head in there. And those guys, that's an important part of their success running the football, the receivers that are tough and can block defensive ends and block linebackers and block corners and safeties.
And obviously it's part of the reason why they use the tight ends as much as they do. But I think you sort of prefaced on the other side of the ball, it does feel like there's an element of, and it's not as if the Ravens haven't been aggressive in the past. They did this with Roquan Smith a couple of years ago, but it sort of feels internally like, hey, this year kind of matters, right? Like you don't know. Maybe Derrick Henry really can play till he's 40, right? Like maybe he is that much of an alien that this can keep going for a long time. But you've got Derrick Henry. He's in a groove. You've been through a lot of playoff letdowns in recent years. It sort of feels like this year should matter to the point where perhaps the Ravens should be a bit more aggressive in season about what they look to do to try to upgrade.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not in there. I don't know the makeup of this football team from a culture standpoint. Maybe they feel really good. They've won 4 in a row. They beat Dallas. They beat Buffalo 35-10. They beat Cincinnati. Now they just beat a 4-1 Washington team. So they got to feel pretty good right now. And to your point about rocking the boat, maybe that's what they don't want to do right now. And sometimes you're playing so good, and then you come into the locker room, and here's a new guy with a locker. Like, what is he doing? We're doing just fine without him. We don't need him right now. So there's an element of that, but if you really feel like as a head coach there's somebody that can help your football team maybe get to the next level, then you got to try to do it.
I want to ask you about something esoterically. The Ravens last week brought back Dean Pease, their former defensive coordinator, in an advisor role for first-year defensive coordinator Zach Orr. And the thought is, look, apparently Dean has continued to be a mentor for Zach since his playing career, and Zach was talking to him anyway. Do these things work? It's sort of a similar conversation, right? Somebody would say, do there end up being too many cooks in the kitchen? Can there be any negative that comes from having someone with experience just be there to help and understand they're not here to call the plays?
I don't think it's I think it's all good having Dean come back. He's an excellent coordinator and called a lot of plays and a lot of big games, and he's done a great job in his tenure as defensive coordinator for a couple different teams. So I think it'll help Zach a lot. And obviously they have a great relationship, and I know Dean will know his role and Zach knows his role, and anything to get the team better and a couple more ideas, maybe in the red zone, maybe on third down, maybe a couple of different blitzes and schemes, it can only help.
That's the way that I felt about it. I can't imagine it being a negative. It just seems like it's a good thing. Just another couple of minutes here with Jay Gruden. Of course, former NFL head coach and now obviously with Underdog Fantasy Football. Coach, I wanted to get your perspective as well. We talk about the defense's struggles, but is it possible that in the NFL at this point, you don't need to have a Baltimore Ravens-esque defense? That if you have that offense that you have and your defense is Derrick Henry and keeping quarterbacks off the field, it's okay if your defense isn't maybe what we're used to with this organization. You can still win a Super Bowl that way.
Well, a lot of teams don't have the luxury of having a top-notch offense and a top-notch defense.
Right.
Maybe Kansas City can argue that with Spagnuolo and the way he calls plays at Kansas City, and then having Mahomes on the other side. They're probably the closest thing to it. Minnesota actually is playing pretty good offense right now and an unbelievable defense. So it's not impossible, but sometimes you have to, give a little bit in some areas of your football, whether it's a linebacking core, as a secondary, or as a safeties, whatever it might be. And you just got to make sure you cover for them and do a good job of protecting those type of players, the weakness in your team, until you address them in the draft or via trade. So, but to have such a superstar offensive group with Lamar and Derrick and obviously Zay Flowers and Ronnie Stanley and the rest of the guys at Linderbaum, they're going to make up for any woes that they might have on defense right now.
All right. I feel like there have been 6 teams at this point in the NFL that have kind of separated themselves from everyone else. Kansas City, Minnesota, Baltimore, Houston, Detroit, Green Bay, whatever order that you want to put them in. It feels like those 6 teams at the moment, and we acknowledge it's only 6 weeks in, this is what it is. But, Coach, is there a team besides that group of teams that you have your eyes on and you say, yeah, but I think this team legitimately could still figure things out and make a run towards a Super Bowl?
Tampa Bay is interesting to me, just
Okay.
the way they can put up points right now. You mentioned Detroit. I think the whole NFC North is interesting to me. I mean, you look at Minnesota, Detroit, Green Bay, and Chicago's 4-2. You just don't. I mean, with a rookie quarterback, they have a really good defense as well. Green Bay, Jordan Love coming back from the injury and the receivers that he has, and obviously Josh Jacobs, and they're playing decent defense. And so, yeah, I'd say Green Bay is another one.
All right, and then I'll leave you with this. There's been some debate, right? Like right now, and I get that there could be an MVP from another team, but there's been this sort of talk in Baltimore that maybe Derrick Henry could detract from Lamar Jackson and the ability to win another MVP award. If you had to pick between one of those two, who's the most valuable, Raven? Is it Derrick Henry or is it Lamar Jackson?
I'm going Lamar every day of the week, my friend.
Yeah.
Lamar is the guy that keeps everything going, man, and his ability to run the ball still and the way he's spinning it in the passing game, Lamar is the man.
All right, Jay Gruden, what does everybody need to know about what it is that you're doing with Underdog?
Oh, I just got a YouTube channel called Clean Pocket. You can log in, and me and Colt McCoy, AQ Shipley, and Justin Pugh, we do a show every week. It's pretty fun, and that's about it. Underdog Fantasy.
AQ's our guy. We love that dude. Obviously, a former Baltimore Raven. Great guy. Coach Jay Gruden, you can also follow him on Twitter. It's @Coach_Jay Gruden. Coach, really appreciate you, man. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us. We really enjoyed the conversation.
You got it. Thanks a lot.